Before we continue, we'll take a brief recap of what we discussed yesterday. We took a look at how we can use our normal, everyday transactions in life to divinize our life. Every transaction, how we can divinize it through emotion, through thought, through the development of the conscience. And renunciation is when the body continues to act. The mind renounces the garbage that it has collected. This is renunciation. Then we took a look at Krishna telling Arjuna and all of us that if you go against your svabhava, your vasanas, it will be in vain. And why do you go against your svabhava? Because of ahankara, ego. So the two words ahankara and mithya, it will all be in vain because your svabhava, your nature will manifest itself. And the last thing we looked at is tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata. The beautiful verse. Whatever you do, you must do sarva bhavena. What is this sarva bhava? Your intellect must be clear that this is the only thing that I ought to do in life, which is our own spiritual evolution. The mind must feel for that ideal intensely. And the body must act dedicatedly, must sacrifice for that ideal. And this is sarva bhavena. O Bharata, your culture, your tradition, this heritage that we have is one in which we revel in the light of consciousness, in the light of Atman, in the spiritual, because spirituality runs through the veins of every Indian. So, with this, we move. Now, another outstanding feature of the Indian culture is the emphasis on adherence to duty and not claim any rights. And this is what has kept our culture going for the last 15,000, 20,000 years. India has the longest unbroken civilization in the world. And this is because of the strong values that have been laid down for us, one of which is duty. In any society, in any family, in any organization, if you see every member of the unit functioning on duties, the unit goes on smoothly, it is successful, it's happy, and everyone grows. But today the trend is the opposite. So, because the human mind has a tendency to claim rights, in our culture we have this unique feature which is cow worship. Even now, if you go to a temple, you'll find one nice fat cow outside the temple, tied up, and all that people do is go and feed it grass. That's why it's fat. But we have forgotten, we do it mechanically, we've forgotten the principle behind it. The principle behind it is that the cow seems to function on maximum output, minimum input. So, this is what has kept the culture going. As we saw the other day, President Obama brought up exactly the same thought in talking to Americans. And he said we must rekindle this spirit of maximum output. This is true in any society. The American society progressed dramatically because all members of their society worked for America. The moment they stopped that and started enjoying facilities, you saw the economy went into recession. And so, this is something that we need to look at. Today, the accent is on only profit, no work. Nobody looks at what am I contributing. Whether it is a bright MBA from a premier management institution or a young girl who gets married and goes into a new home, the emphasis is on profit, maximizing profit. How much can I maximize my earnings? Nobody takes a look at What am I contributing? And so there's discord, there's collision, there is unhappiness and unrest in society. The fundamental thing we need to understand is you need to command the resources of the world. You cannot demand. You can't go into a new environment and demand things for yourself. They will never be given to you. Not because people don't want to give it, but for the simple reason that you don't deserve it. Work towards deserving, you will get it. And how do you work towards deserving? Work in a spirit of giving, in an attitude of giving, just the attitude. You don't need to give anything. What can you give? What do you have to give? Just the attitude. And anyone who functions in an attitude of giving, by God, commands not just the resources of the world, but commands the respect of the world, commands everything. So we must inculcate this spirit of giving. What do we mean by giving? When our attention is on the physical body, the body by itself has demands, so you're stuck with the demands of the body. Yet, even if you are at the physical level, you take into consideration other people. What a wonderful effect it has. After 26/11, when the Taj Mahal Hotel was hit, Ratan Tata could have taken care of only his employees. But he stretched way beyond his responsibilities and accountability and took care of every single person who was affected by the terrorist attack, and what an effect it had on people. You get profit. Why is the Tata Group what it is today? Because they have always been in the forefront when it comes to doing service. So you rise at the emotional level. You know, in our family, I believe, I'd never met her. There was a lady, a young widow, who all her life, and in those days, 2 generations back, widows were badly treated, the norms, the social customs were so horrible. Yet, she just rose above her self-interest and sacrificed, served the entire family, and she was the one person who was greatly respected. You see this, anyone who sacrifices gets respect, rewards, gains in life. You go at the intellectual level. I remember one year, the topper of one of the IIMs opted out of placement and said, I want to join an NGO, I want to do service. Straight away, his name appeared in the front page of all the newspapers. And he hadn't paid for that. Nowadays, you can pay to get your name appear in the papers, right? But he didn't have to pay for it. He just went straight zooming to the top. And at the spiritual level, the rewards are enormous. Take a look at Nachiketas. Nachiketas decided that he wanted to learn Brahma Vidya. And so who best to learn from but Lord Yama? Why did he pick on Lord Yama? Because when you start your spiritual education, what would happen if he died before he got to realization? So he decided to appoint Lord Yama as his guru, because then he knew that Lord Yama could not take him away unless he delivered. So he went to heaven seeking Lord Yama. When he went to heaven, he found that Lord Yama was missing. Why? Because too many terrorist attacks on earth, Lord Yama was working overtime. So he was made to wait for 3 days. And to make a highly sattvic individual, a refined person, wait for 3 days is terrible. So when Lord Yama went back, he decided to make good for the delay and offered Nachiketas 3 boons. He said, I'm sorry I made you wait, but I will offer you 3 boons to make good for this delay. Nachiketas said, first boon that he asked for, see, right through, if you and I were given 3 boons, what would we ask for? Give me a nice penthouse apartment. Let me, every time I go to America, the same thing people come and ask, do you have a nice girl, spiritual girl for my son? As if I manufacture them. And so something like that you'll ask. Nachiketa, straight away, without thinking, he said, he looked at his obligations. He looked at his duties. My first duty is to the family. He said, when I came here, my father was greatly distressed. Please appease his agitation. Tathastu, said Lord Yama. Second boon, teach me the art of fire sacrifice, yajna, the ability to do good to society, to the world. Tathastu, said Lord Yama, and Nachiketas learnt it and practiced it and did it so beautifully that Yama took out his necklace and gave it to him and said, from now onwards, Nachiketas, anybody who sacrifices, that sacrifice will be called Nachiketa sacrifice. And the final boon that he asked for was, teach me Brahma Vidya. That's when Lord Yama hesitated a bit. Here was this bright young boy coming and asking for Brahma Vidya. He wanted to make sure that Nachiketas really wanted it. So he said, you're a bright young boy. This is what you would tell your youngsters. No? Suppose they say, I want to come to the Bhagavad Gita lecture. You'll say, Arey, why unnecessarily you want to waste your time now? Wait till you destroy yourself completely, then you can go to Bhagavad. So Lord Yama told him, why do you want all this? Why do you want Brahma Vidya? There were cattle there grazing in the fields in heaven. So he said, why don't you take this? Cattle means wealth. And wealth in heaven is like saying, I will make you the chairman of all the banks in the world. You know, he's giving him immense wealth at his command. Nachiketas was so disinterested in it, so he turned away and looked the other direction. And it so happened that where he looked, there were heavenly damsels, wonderful people dancing there. So Lord Yama must have thought to himself, oh, money doesn't motivate him, maybe this will. So he said, you can have them too. That's when Nachiketas said the famous words, Tavaiva vahas tavanritya gite. You keep your song and dance, Yama. Teach me Brahma Vidya. So in other words, when you function at the spiritual level, when you are fired by the highest ideal, which is spiritual ideal, the entire world falls at your feet. So what you have to do is first understand where you are. Are you at the physical level? Are you at the emotional level, intellectual level? And then try and move up the ladder. Fix a higher and higher goal. Once you fix that higher goal and work dedicatedly towards it, you find that you are able to get fulfillment in the very action itself. You are no longer bothered by the desire to get somewhere. You are not anxious for the fruit of the action. You know that if you consistently work towards this, you will get it sometime. That's the assurance. So what do? You perform dedicated actions for the sheer love of it. You find complete, total fulfillment in just performing the action. And what do you get? Moksha. So simple, yet very difficult. You look around in the world, you find every element in nature, every creature functions in this spirit of just karyam karma. If a bird sings, it sings because that is its nature to sing. It finds fulfillment in the action. It doesn't look for a reward. It doesn't look for a Padma Shri or Bharat Ratna. It doesn't look for an audience. It sings because it must sing. A woodpecker pecks on wood because that's its nature. A cobra hisses because that is its nature. That's its beauty. A deer has its beauty. A peacock dances. It doesn't bother whether you are there to appreciate it or not. Only the human being has ulterior motives. Only the human being has selfish desires driving. Only the human being is working for a fruit, is driven by the fruit, and therefore only the human being is miserable. Throughout the Gita he says, Krupanaha phalahetavaha. Miserable is the person who works for the fruit of action. Why? Because the fruit is not in your hands. Whatever the fruit is the effect of collective effort. The fruit is the effect of all your past actions put together. You don't know what your past actions are. So there's no point working for the fruit. There's no point depending on the fruit. All you can do is work sincerely, dedicatedly. This moment I see that this is what I ought to do. Do it to the best of my ability. Sarva bhavena, as he said earlier, yesterday. And what will you find? The fruit that you get is moksha. So just do whatever it is that you ought to do. And the side effects are prosperity. Siddhi, the result is siddhi, success, prosperity will rain down on you. Throughout the world, see, take a look at examples. Who are the people who have prospered? People who have worked in a sense of dedication. Who are the people who have lost out? People who worked for a selfish end. Yes, temporarily they might succeed. It's a flash in the pan success. What is the use of being prosperous for 5 days in your life and then being a pauper the rest of your life? To have sustained success, you have to function in a spirit of giving, because the only way to receive in life is by giving. The route to get prosperity is giving. Everyone cooperates with you. See, nobody is interested in just your becoming chairman or managing director. There's no connection. But if you say, let's work for the collective good, everyone gets excited, everyone gets motivated, everyone works in a spirit of togetherness, and there are wonderful results. Like these 5 days lectures have been organized by a handful of young people who have worked with great enthusiasm, motivation, dedication. The lady who sings bhajans here has left a 3-month-old child behind at home to come all the way here from South Mumbai to sing. So it's the collective effort of a few people working dedicatedly brings about such wonderful results. What will happen if all of us work together? For what? Loka sangraha, the welfare of humanity, the welfare of the world, all beings. Second, sukha, happiness. The law is that all selfish people are traumatized, stressed out, unhappy. No unselfish person is unhappy. So now use this with yourself. To the extent that you are unhappy, you must simply understand what? That we are selfish. And work your way out of it. Turn unselfish. Remember one thing, Krishna doesn't ask us to do service because he wants us to do service. Krishna doesn't ask us to do service because the world needs our service. The world is not so poor as to need your service or mine. Then why is he asking us to do it? Because that is the only way to survive. That's the only way to be happy. And if you don't understand that, God be with you is what Krishna says. We hear it, we repeat it, but you're set in that mold of selfishness. It just doesn't leave you. It's so difficult to break free from it. Therefore, you must force yourself into acts of giving. At least then you'll loosen up a bit. Otherwise, it's an impossible task. And the last thing you get is param gatim, the state of perfection, moksha. Why? When you fix a higher ideal and all your thoughts, your intellect, your mind, your body, everything is dedicated towards that ideal, you get attached to that higher ideal, your lower desires get starved, because you're not thinking of when to shop and which restaurant to go to and which is the latest movie do I see, and things like that. The lower desires drop, you get a tremendous relief. Please remember one thing, all the stress that we are going through is because of unfulfilled desires accumulating in our system. You are so careless about cultivating desires. You have no clue how to go about dealing with them or fulfilling them. And so this toxic waste of desires builds up within us, and that's what kills us. So when you work in a spirit of giving, your desires drop, you become a free person, you evolve spiritually, and so it's an all-win situation. You gain prosperity, you become happy in the world, and you move beyond the world. This is with reference to action. Second, emotions. Why is it that when we reach out to the world, to people around us, with good emotions, somehow every relationship gets mixed up, every relationship gets bitter, and every relationship gives us pain, is something that you need to analyze. Vedanta says, or the Bhagavad Gita says, this is because of attachment. Throughout the Gita, he speaks of detachment. Even here in this chapter, he's spoken about it. What is the difference between attachment? And we misunderstand it. So when Krishna tells us to get detached, we believe that he is asking us to leave our wives and children, or husbands and children. Why would he want to do that? He doesn't want to take away your relationships. He wants to give back the relationship that you have already lost. How is that? Attachment is when you enter a relationship, the starting point, that which helps you to get into the relationship and continues, is all about me. I need emotions. I need the relationship. I am not complete by myself, so I need to hang on to various people. And then it's just me. So you're constantly making demands on people around you. There are expectations from them. You are imposing your ideas and demands on them, and so naturally they feel like saying, just leave me alone.